What's up, guys? Welcome to a video. Today we're gonna be reacting to something.
We had a chance to do it.
Let's see. Let's.
Are you saying
The unluckiest deaths ever. Let's watch that.
The pool party. In 1985, 31-year-old Jerome Moody went to a pool party the city of New Orleans had thrown for its lifeguards. They were celebrating an entire
Yo, that pool is green.
Over 200 people showed up. More than 100 of them.
You guys see that? That pool is green.
Can't we be brave?
Yeah, great. Can't
we believe?
100+ people.
Because maybe that's all we need.
Were certified lifeguards, and 4 were stationed on active duty at the pool that night.
A little hope.
Food, drinks, and
A little belief.
At the end of the night, guests started heading out. As people cleared out, someone noticed a body sitting at the bottom of the deep end. It was Jerome.
Maybe there are
He had been down there for hours while the party was still going on, and nobody noticed. Jerome wasn't a lifeguard, he was just a guest. The season without a drowning ended at the party they threw to celebrate. The fish delivery. In 1671, Francois Patel was hired to organize a 3-day feast for King Louis XIV of France.
Crazy,
He was the maître d'hôtel, basically the head of everything. Food, service, and entertainment.
This guy has to be good. There's no way he did not get his license from a pro.
More guests showed up than planned, and 2 tables ran short on those. That night, fog rolled in and ruined the fireworks. The next morning was a Friday. In Catholic France, that meant fish had to be served. Vatel woke up at 4 to check on the delivery. Only 2 small shipments had arrived. He asked the supplier if that was all. The supplier said yes, not realizing Vatel was asking about all the suppliers, not just him. As far as Vatel knew, the feast was ruined, and his reputation along with it. So he went back to his room and stabbed himself with a sword. Minutes later, fish deliveries started arriving from every port in the region. There was more than enough for everyone. The party went on without him. The scar on September.
But that is crazy, though.
I'm not saying I don't want to.
Like killing yourself, like just because you didn't get enough supplies. Like chill, it's just supplies.
There's only hoping we can learn. We can change, right? We can do better.
I mean, it is food, but like it's not yours. It's everybody's. Everybody's gonna eat it.
My bad.
They did literally.
Like what? Like hello.
December 14, 1927, 50-year-old Isadora Duncan was getting ready for an evening drive to East France. Duncan was an American dancer known for performing barefoot in flowing robes and long silk scarves. The scarves became her signature. She wore them on stage and off. The car belonged to Benoit Falchetto, a French-Italian mechanic. It was an Amel car CGSS, a small open-top sports car with open spoke wheels.
Why does it actually look sick though?
Friend told Duncan,
I guess it's you then.
You guys see that? You see those 2 red dots? That's gonna be cancer. I don't think that's cancer.
or a cake because of the cold. She refused and threw a long, pink silk scarf over her shoulders. Then she got into the passenger seat. The end of the scarf hung down low over the side of the car. When Falchetto pulled away, the trailing end got caught in the open spokes of the rear wheel. The scarf wrapped tight around the wheel and axle and yanked Duncan out of the car by her neck. The force snapped her spine, crushed her throat, and dragged her along the stone road. Falchetto hit the brakes within seconds, but she was already dead. Doctors later said she was nearly decapitated. The orange peel. On July 25th, 1911,
The orange peel. What? The other one was just crazy. Like at least you could go like. At least, like, why are you wearing the scarf 24/7? That's what I'm saying, you know? But the orange peel?
a man named Bobby Leach climbed into a steel barrel and went over Niagara Falls. The drop was 167 feet. He became only the 2nd person in history to survive. The fall broke both his kneecaps, fractured his jaw, and left him in the hospital for 6 months. After he recovered, Leach spent the next 15 years touring the world with his bear, telling his story. In his 60s, he went back to the falls and tried to swim the whirlpool rapids. He failed and had to be rescued. In 1926, while on a publicity tour in New Zealand, Leach was walking down Princess Street in Auckland when he slipped on an orange peel and broke his leg. The wound got infected. Gangrene set in and doctors had to amputate. Bobby Leach died 2 months later. The tortoise. A Greek playwright named Aeschylus was
What happened to him?
Like, if you just die, just respawn, you know? You know, guys? It's that easy. Why are we even talking about
once
this?
told by a prophecy that he would be killed by a falling object. He took it seriously. He started spending as much time outdoors as he could, away from buildings, rooftops, and anything that could collapse him. Around 455 BC, the 67-year-old Aeschylus was walking through an open field in the countryside of
Don't
Sicily.
you die
Eagles
there!
flying overhead carrying a tortoise. Eagles eat tortoises by dropping them from high up onto smooth rocks to crack the shell open. The eagle let go, and the tortoise landed on Aeschylus' bald head and killed him. He is still known today as the father of tragedy. The Czech.
Imagine getting killed by a turtle. That's like the unluckiest. Like those are like the unluckiest deaths ever. You know, right?
In March 1938, a playwright named Odin von Horvath fled Vienna after the Nazis took over Austria and banned his work. He went to Budapest first, then made his way to Paris. Horvath had always been afraid of storms. A few days before his death, he told a friend he wasn't so afraid of the Nazis. There were worse things to be scared of, he said. Things you fear without knowing why. On June 1st, 1938, less than 3 months after arriving in Paris, the 36-year-old Horvath was walking down the Champs-Élysées when a thunderstorm rolled in. He stepped under a large chestnut tree to wait it out. Lightning struck the tree, and a heavy branch came down on his head and killed him. He died directly across the street from the Theater Marigny. The alarm clock. In the 1880s, a lamplighter named Samuel Wardell had a problem. His job required him to be up before dawn every morning to put out the street lamps in Flatbush, New York. But Wardell was an exceptionally heavy student, and a regular alarm clock wasn't enough to wake him, so he built his own. He connected a wire from his alarm clock to a shelf above his bed and placed a 10-pound rock on it. When the alarm went off, the shelf would tip, and the rock would crash onto the floor next to his bed. The noise was loud enough to wake him every time. It worked perfectly for months. On Christmas Eve, 1885, Wardell hosted a party and moved the furniture around to make room for guests. After the party, he went to bed without noticing that his bed was now directly under the shelf. The alarm went off at 5 in the morning. The rock didn't hit the floor. It hit Wardell. He died a few days later on New Year's Eve. The jockey. On June 4th, 1923, a stable hand named Frank Hayes finally got his chance to ride in a real race. Hayes had spent years training horses at Belmont Park in New York, but what he really wanted was to be a jockey. His boss agreed to let him ride a mare named Sweet Kiss. There was one problem. Hayes was too heavy. He had to lose over 10 pounds in a single day just to be allowed to ride. He jogged for hours, barely ate, and stopped drinking water. By the time he climbed onto the horse, he was light enough, but he was weak. Sweet Kiss was a 20-1 long shot. Nobody expected her to win.
That's
but she
crazy,
took the lead on the
though.
final stretch and crossed the finish line first. When the owner came to congratulate Hayes, he was slumped forward in the saddle. A doctor looked him over and said he was dead. He had suffered a heart attack somewhere during the race, and his body had stayed on the horse the whole time. It was his first and only race. The horse was nicknamed Sweet Kiss of Death and never raced again. The poodle. On October 20th,
It's his fault.
1988, a poodle
At least drink water, though.
floor balcony in Buenos Aires and landed on a 75-year-old woman named Marta Espina, who was walking on the sidewalk below. Both died on impact.
No!
Gathered to see
The
the
dog!
A 46-year-old woman named Edith Sola stepped off the curb on a closer look and was hit by a bus, killing her
The
instantly.
dog!
Moments later, a man walking out of a nearby park.
The dog, though! The dog! Oh, why the dog? No!
I'll tell him to find it. Excuse me.
Oh,
Tatum,
A
go ahead.
receiver who'd seen both of these things happen went into cardiac arrest and died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. The dog had been chasing a tennis ball. The wrong turn. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the next in line to rule the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was riding through Sarajevo in an open car with his wife
I
Sophie.
just said
6 Serbian nationalists were waiting along the
if you
route.
see Karev,
The
have a
first
fight.
one threw a bomb. It bounced off the car and went off under the one behind it.
a
The car
bomb!
sped away and the other 5, including a 19-year-old named Gavrilo Princip, never got the chance to act. The plan had failed, and the group scattered. Ferdinand went ahead with his visit to City Hall. When the mayor started his welcome speech, Ferdinand cut him off and said, "I came here on a visit, and I am greeted with bombs." But he stayed. Afterward, he wanted to go to the hospital to check on an officer who had been hurt by the bomb. His driver, who didn't know the city well, turned down the wrong street and stopped the car to turn around. He had stopped right in front of where Princip was standing. Princip pulled out a pistol and shot Franz Ferdinand and Sophie. Both of them died within the hour. 5 weeks later, World War I began. The Cow. In 2013, a 45-year-old man named João
World War II.
invested his wife and parents in Brazil. Their house was small and sat at the bottom of a steep hill where local cattle roamed. That night, a 1-ton cow wandered off a nearby farm.
I actually like
walked up
history.
the hill,
Do you guys
stepped
like it?
onto
I like
the
science.
roof gave way, and the cow fell 8 feet onto the Sousa side of the bed. His wife wasn't hurt. Neither was the cow. D'Souza was taken to the hospital with a broken leg and died the next day from internal bleeding.
I heard about this story.
A roof in that area.
You don't know
The
anything.
tram. On June 7th, 1920,
I heard about that story, though.
was hit by a tram while crossing the street in Barcelona. He was knocked to the ground and lost consciousness. People nearby looked at him and assumed he was a beggar. His clothes were worn out, his hair was a mess, and he had no wallet or identification. 2 men tried to get him a taxi to the hospital, but 2 drivers refused to take him when they saw him. A 4th didn't even stop. A police officer finally forced a 5th taxi to pick him up. He was taken to a charity hospital for the poor and given basic care. It wasn't until the next day that a chaplain from a nearby church recognized him. The man was Antoni Gaudí, the most famous architect in Barcelona and the designer of the Sagrada Familia. By then, it was too late. Gaudí died 3 days after the accident. Thousands of people lined the streets of his funeral. The taxi drivers who refused to take him were found and fined. The funeral. In 2011,
Nah, bro, you should absolutely put him in prison.
Collapsed at her home in Kazan, Russia, with chest pains. Doctors at the hospital said she had suffered a heart attack and declared her dead. 2 days later, her family held a funeral. As mourners prayed around her open coffin, Mukhamatsianov opened her eyes. She saw where she was and started screaming. The shock gave her a real heart attack. Her husband rushed her back to the hospital, but she died 12 minutes later. He later said they could have saved her. The cigarette. On May 22nd, 1867, 18-year-old Archduchess Matilda of Austria was getting ready for a night at the theater in Vienna. She put on a long gauze dress, and while waiting to leave, lit a cigarette. Her father had strictly forbidden her from smoking, so when she heard him coming, she hid it behind her back. The lit end touched the gauze. The dress caught fire instantly and burned her back, arms, neck, and legs before anyone could put it out. Matilda died 16 days later from the burns. She had been set to marry the Crown Prince of Italy.
I'm not sure I'm the person he wants to
On
see.
July 28, 1980,
That's why it's called Australia.
Troy Leon Gray was sitting on death row at Georgia State Prison for a double murder. He was 2 days away from being put to death. That night, he and 3 other inmates saw through the bars of their cells and through a window, climbed along the outside ledge to a fire escape, and made it down to the ground. They had changed their prison clothes to look like guard uniforms. So when real guards stopped them on the way out, they told them they were doing security checks. The guards believed them and let them through. There was a car waiting in the parking lot, and they drove off. Hours later, Greg walked into a bar in North Carolina and got into a fight. He was beaten to death. His body was found the next morning floating in a river. Nobody was ever convicted of killing him. The other 3 inmates were caught 2 days later. The opera. On January 5th, 1996, 63-year-old Richard Versal was singing at the Metropolitan Opera in New York. It was opening night of an opera about a woman who had found the secrets of living forever. Versal was playing a clerk in the opening scene, singing from the top of a tall ladder. A few minutes in, he sang the line, "You can only live so long." Then he had a heart attack, fell from the ladder, and landed on his back on the stage. He was dead by the time he got to the hospital. The audience thought it was part of the show. The Pig. On October 13th, 1131, 15-year-old Prince Philip of France was riding through the streets of Paris with a group of friends. Philip was the son of King Louis VI, and his father had already crowned him king 2 years earlier. They were moving fast along the River Seine. Suddenly, a pig
So that girl was about to marry this guy, and he also
right between the legs of his horse. The horse was going too fast.
and he also died unlucky. That's what you get.
He landed on his head, never woke up.
I mean, that's not what he gets. I mean, it's
His
technically
father
not
passed a
his
law banning pigs from the streets of Paris. On the night
Trying
of
to
March
her
18th,
fault
1735,
because
62-year-old
kids never
Countess
smoke.
Cornelia Bandy of Italy wasn't feeling well. She had dinner with her family.
No,
then her
that's
maid
what you
talked
call a
to her.
life
The
lesson.
two of them talked and prayed together for about 3 hours.
Parents
before
make
the Countess
us.
left. The maid shut the door and left. The Countess had a habit of rubbing brandy all over her body to help with aches and pains. She had done it again that night. There was an oil lamp burning in the room. The next morning, when the Countess didn't wake up at her usual time, the maid went in to check on her. What she found was a pile of ashes on the floor about 4 feet from the bed. 2 legs, still in their stockings, from the knees down. 3 burning fingers, and part of a skull. That was all that was left of the Countess. The bed hadn't burned. The furniture hadn't burned. Nothing else in the room had caught fire. Just her. The stairs. On January 24th, 1556,
1556
was coming down the steep stairs of his library in Delhi with his arms full of books. He heard the call to prayer from a nearby mosque. Humayun always knelt the moment he heard it, no matter where he was, so he tried to drop to his knees right there on the stairs. His foot caught in his robe and he slipped, fell down the steps, and hit his head on a stone edge at the bottom. He died 3 days later. He had only been emperor again for a few months, after spending 15 years fighting to win his empire back. If you'd like to see more stories like this, make sure to subscribe and feel free to drop suggestions.
Okay, guys, that's all the time that we have today. I just want to say, hit that like and subscribe button, cause we're about to get to 110 subscribers, just 5 more subscribers away. And peace out. We'll do another reaction video tomorrow. And peace out. Bye.